Hi guys, Paul here at Radio Shop Pickups again in South Wales, and you join me for part 3 of how to solder for guitarists. And today, in this sort of lesson really, I'm going to be looking at soldering to a Strat switch tip, which is a little bit tricky. There's a couple of challenges here really. I suppose the biggest challenge really is going to be dripping of solder. And solder will end up going down the joint. I mean, this will happen. I've got to be honest. It's going to happen to me as well, okay? And if it's not to excess, it's not something you really need to worry too much about. But what you've got to worry about is if it is to excess, okay? Now, a little bit of a tip. If you do get the dripping of solder down the joint, if you do get it going down one of these contact points, turn it upside down. Reheat the area, hope you can see that we've got the dripping, and then it'll drip down back onto the switch contact point. Okay, so that's a little bit of a tip, because it inevitably does happen whereby you get dripping of the solder, or it just starts to go down the contact point. So that's a bit of a tip there, is to turn it upside down and use gravity as your friend and get it to come back to where you want it to be. Now what I want you to do is really imagine here really, I'm just using a length of hookup wire, but imagine that we're attaching a pickup, let's say the middle pickup to this point here, and we want to end up with this in there. Now one of the things, if you're doing a pickup upgrade, you may find that you've actually got you've got a desolder obviously, and you've got a wire stuck in place which has actually been turned as well. Quite a lot of people do it this way, which is, it's great. It's a really good contact point, but it's a hell of a problem then when it comes to actually getting it out. So I don't do it that way, because obviously somebody may want to remove it, do a bit of rewiring or whatever, and it's a future problem really for somebody. So when I'm doing my loaded pick guards, I don't do it that way, okay? And my advice for that really, for getting it out and for desoldering, is not to trim it. I wouldn't trim it, although I suppose you could trim it and then just solder through the hole. You could do it that way, but the best thing to do is kind of get in there, heat it up, pull it around, and it's just a case of reheating and reheating until you can free it. And it will happen whereby you can eventually turn it the right way around, because doesn't seem to want to show you in this example, and you can reheat, pull it, reheat, pull it, and you'll get it out, okay? And people do that, as I said, to install pickups, because it is a very good joint, but it's kind of a little bit sort of not very friendly way of doing it really for somebody's future problem. Okay, now what we're going to do is tin. We'll start off actually by tinning the start wire, the pickup wire. So I'm just going to pull that back, and if you haven't already seen part 1, I go through tinning in quite a bit of depth really, so it's really worth watching. So what I'm going to do now is just get a little bit of solder onto there, onto the tip of the soldering iron, put it up against the wire that I'm looking to do, and just add then to the wire, and that's tinned. Okay, a little bit of a tip for you: hookup wire, the way it behaves. Obviously one of the beauties of hookup wire like this is that you can then pull that, or push it rather, so it goes right up to the joint. And one of the tips I've got for you is to trim a little bit off, so you've actually got an excess of cloth hookup wire. So we've got lots of solder there now, which will easily help to fill up the switch contact point. And then we'll also be able to pull over, look, easily be able to pull over so that the cloth goes all the way to the joint. So I'm going to pull that back so we don't melt or fray any of the cloth. And now I'm going to tin the switch contact point. Now I'm going to use gravity as my friend here, because I'm going to add to the very tip of it and hope that it's going to drip down. So I'm just adding to the tip and as you can see, it's already beginning to drip down. And then I just put that there like that. Now it's in. And you know, there's not a huge amount of solder there now on the switch tip, but I've got a little bit of solder on the wire that I'm putting in. So now what I want to do is just heat up the switch tip and just pop that through. Now look at the other side. Now we've got a very good solder joint there, nice and shiny. We could put a little bit more on. Let me inspect that. It's fine. So it's shiny on both sides. It's through. It should be fine for decades. And then I'm going to just push the hookup wire like that along there until it meets the solder joint, and that's a neat job. And that really is soldering to the switch tip. Things that could go wrong are dripping really, and we've had a little look at what we can do about that, and you would start again. So I hope you found that useful. If you did, please hit subscribe below, and we'll move on to the next part of this video. Okay, so I'll see you in part 4. Thank you.